Hey everybody, this is Nori from Smart Service, and today we're going to take a look at the latest and greatest features coming out in version 112. Before today, you used to have to go into the screens every so often and confirm that you wanted to send out those emails or text messages to your customers with upcoming services, but you don't do that anymore. We've made it so that Smart Service can send out these reminders a few days before these work orders are going to happen. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these features here. Now, the old screens are being replaced with the newer options here. So let's go into our office screen. And I'm sure you're familiar already with, on the left-hand side here, the email job reminders and message job reminders sections. So you'll still use these sections here if you want to go in and see the status of these emails or text reminders being sent to the customer. But we do need to do a little bit of setup before we can really get into that section. So before you start diving too deep into this, what you need to do is set up some template messages that should be sent to your customers using these reminders. To do that, you'll need access to your settings section. Now, not everybody's going to have access to the settings section. This is something that's usually limited to our administrators, so if you don't have permission to do this, talk to your office administrator, see if they can get these templates set up for you, or get you the permission to get in here yourself. But on the first page, the company tab here, we're going to click on this Setup Smart Service Add-on section. And from Setup Smart Service Add-ons here, we're going to look first at the Email Job Reminders option. Now, the way you set these up is going to be based on the job type. Whether you're using QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, you have the ability to set up job types in Smart Service. These typically denote what kind of service you're going to be doing for the customer. You can see here I have some examples: installation, repair, service call. This is what kind of work I'm doing for the customer, so the customers are going to get a different template, a different message, based on what kind of work you're doing for them. Now, you could set up all these templates or all these job types to have the same template. That's fine. You'll just copy and paste the same message over and over. But you do have the option to set them up different if there's something slightly different you want to tell them on an installation versus a service call. But we'll choose our job types here from our list of job types. This, of course, is my list of job types. You'll have a different one. But you choose a job type, and then you click the Edit button to the right. That's going to open up this window here, and this is where you go ahead and start setting up your reminder template. In the subject, this will be the subject of, in this case, the email, and all we got to do is type something out. Now, I do have something that's interesting in both here and the body of the email, and you can see them here. There's a job type inserted in there. There's a first name inserted in there. What I'm doing for those is, if you come down, and let me go a few lines down so you can see this, you write out your message. So I wrote out hello, and then I right-clicked, and then it gives me the option to choose from these different field codes. This will pull information from the work order and put it onto this reminder. So when I said hello first name, for example, when the customer gets this, it's actually going to look at their work order record and pull their first name. Same thing with the service address and the scheduled date and the job type. So you get to choose what fields you want to pull in there. But you just right-click to enter that information. Now, one word of advice before you do that stuff: always look at what you have filled out on work orders already. I see a lot of customers that maybe don't put a first name in the first name box. There is actually a first name box on every customer and every job. If you're not putting stuff in there, that first name field isn't going to work for you. You might have to pull a different field like contact or address line 1 or wherever you're storing that information for your customers. Make sure to be consistent. That's the biggest thing. That way you can pull the correct field and your templates will work. If the template doesn't have, like, let's say, a first name on there, what's going to happen is it's just going to send a blank space where the first name should go. So again, be consistent with it. Make sure you fill something out. But we set up our template, and then up here at the top left of the window, we have a new auto send feature. So we want to go ahead and check that box. That'll be brand new. So once you download this, you won't have that checked. Make sure to go ahead and check it. And then we want to say how many days in advance we should be sending out this reminder. Now, if I do 1, that's going to send it out. If the job was today, it would have sent out the reminder yesterday. If I put a 0, it's going to send out that job reminder today. So that's important. Make sure to set the number of days you want the reminder to go out. It's not going to look at weekends or anything like that. It's going to send it out exactly 24 hours before the job or 48 hours before the job. So make sure you put in something that you want here. Once we have this set up, and you can, of course, insert your logo, we can go ahead and save this. And then, if we want, we'll go back to our Office, and under Office, we're going to go over to Email Job Reminders. Now, as a reminder for you, you don't have to do this. This is just to show you how the function works. this will automatically send those installation job reminders out whenever we have an installation coming up. But if we want to go in here, we can take a look at what we got. So I'll click on Email Job Reminders. It's going to open up the screen, and up here I can do some filtering. So I've got some work orders set up for you already for today. So let's just bring those up. So those are the work orders I have on my calendar. And the new additions to this screen over here are going to be on the far right-hand side. So you have an auto send date. Now, this is going to send out this reminder. Like I said, if it's set up for 1 day in advance, literally 24 hours before that job. You can see that the reminder, it auto sent for me today at 8 a.m. And that's because that reminder for my repair calls is set to go out on 0 days, the day of. Now, the reason I picked 8 a.m. is because the work order was scheduled for 8 a.m. So that part's important. It is exactly 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours before the work order. So when you select that number of days, it's going to go out at that time that the work is scheduled for. And that's why you have different times going on in here. So we can see the auto send date. To the right of that here, if I go and click on this little clock icon, this will let me read the auto send date if in case I need to change it for any reason. If you're choosing to send these out manually by coming in here and clicking the next button to the right, which is that little email symbol, that will let you still send it manually. But this is just letting me see what the date was in case I need to change it for any reason. But that's pretty much it. Everything else on the screen is the same stuff we've always had with the addition of this new auto send date feature. For those of you who are doing the text reminders feature, very similar setup. We're going to go ahead and close out Email Job Reminders. And when we go into our settings, and again, if you don't have access to settings, ask your system administrator. They should be able to get you in. But under settings, set up smart service add-ons. And then in this section here, we're going to head over to our text messaging tab at the top. And we have basically the same setup that we had for email job reminders. You pick out a job type, so what kind of type you want to have. You hit the edit tool next to that, and you basically set up the same kind of message. This one also has the same set your auto send, so we'll go ahead and check that. And we can say, hey, I want this to go out, let's say, a day before the work order happens. I set up my message, just like the email job reminders option, and now it's set in there. Now, as a reminder, the texting service here is a paid service. This is something that you would pay in for if you want the text ability. The email job reminders and all its functionality comes with the program, so that's no extra cost for you. But these text messages will decrease your text messaging balance if you've enabled the text messaging add-on for Smart Service. And then the last thing here that I wanted to show everybody, if we head over to our Office screen again, and we go over to our message job reminders, you'll see, again, the screen is pretty much the same screen that it's always been, but it's going to have very similar new features to the job reminders option. So if I come in here and I filter down to a particular date, you can see in here it's still got that auto send date feature. It's still got the timestamp. It's still got the button to force a message out by hand from here. But otherwise, it'll just keep doing this all on its own. You don't have to do anything extra for it. You just set up these templates. You let them keep sending. The customers get their notification. Alright everybody, so for our next big feature coming to you in version 1.12, we're going to be doing estimates from iFleet. Now this is something that does have a permission lock back in Smart Service. I'll be taking you back there momentarily to show you that permission. But let's go ahead and start with what the feature does out here in the field. So if you're working in iFleet, you want to go ahead and tap on the menu button. Now since I'm using an iOS device, mine is at the top right hand corner of iFleet. If you're on Android, it'll be at the top left. We can tap on this option here, and if my user has permissions, I have a new quote option down on the bottom right hand side, right next to that new job option. So I can go ahead and tap on that whenever I want to generate my own quote. The purpose of this feature is to avoid situations where your technician would need to call you guys in the office to have you create a new quote and send it out to them. They've always had the ability to create a quote from a work order through Smart Service. This is quite different from that. This is without office intervention whatsoever. Even without a work order, I can now generate my own new quote whenever I like. The other important aspect of this new function here is that we have moved the ability to create a quote from a work order into this same section. So now you can create a quote for an existing customer or for a new customer. So we've kind of taken that option out of the job section and put it in its own special place here to give you more opportunities. But just like the add job feature, if I want to search for a particular customer, up at the top of my screen here, I could tap to type something in. So I can search for a person that way. or I can scroll through my list of customers to find the customer I'm trying to visit. With that being said, it would be a good idea to instruct your technicians to always look before they create a new prospect up at the top right. We say the same thing about the new customer options. Verify whether or not that person is in the list first. You can search by their name, their address, whatever you got. See if they're in there before you go to create a new profile for them, a new prospect or new lead in this case, just to make sure that we're not doubling up our information. But we can go through, we can pick out any customer that we like from our list. You see I have my full customer list here, so I'll go ahead and tap on somebody. That'll let me get started on this new quote. Now it's going to ask me some questions about this quote, primarily what kind of job is it. So we're going to go up to job type. You would select your job type. Let's say this customer, they are going to need, let's go ahead and do a repair on something. And now that we have repair selected here, you can see that I am the scheduled employee because I am the one that's creating this service. You can see that I am listed as the sales rep because I'm the one creating this new quote. And then we got, of course, the scheduled date, start time, end time. By the way, you can tap in these fields to make adjustments if you need to as well. But we'd fill out the information, and then when we're ready, we can go ahead and hit submit at the top right. And that's going to go ahead and generate my new quote for Tyler that I've just created. All right, so we got our new quote created, and if I X out of this list at the top left here, so we can go back to iFleet. And then once we're here, as a reminder, when you create a new job or a new estimate or quote or whatever you want to call these things out in the field, it uses something called Hotline to immediately send that back to the office. So you want to go ahead and sync your device so you get that new quote or new job that you just created. Basically, it goes from your tablet, goes back to the office to make sure we got all the customer's information, all that stuff, and then bounces right back to your tablet. So it's important that you do a sync in there to make sure you got your stuff. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom of my list, I'll see right here I've got a new estimate for Tyler Blank, and I can go ahead and tap on that, and I can get started recording whatever I needed to quote for Tyler here. One last note on this section here, this is basically the exact same as if the office sent you a quote, so you'll have all the same features and abilities, customer's information, ability to add forms, take photos, all that stuff. There is going to be a slight difference when this document comes back to the office. We want to make sure the office goes ahead and reviews the information before we really commit it to the database, so we're going to take a look at that. But if you like this feature, like I said, there are some permissions you need to enable, so let's go back to Smart Service and take a look at where those are. All right, and we're back here in Smart Service. So to enable this new Estimates in iFleet functionality, what you need to do is, again, go into your settings window. And again, if you don't have permission to go into these settings, talk to your system administrator. But you go into settings and we want to go to the employees section. And under employees, we want to find one of our technicians, whoever we want to give this new ability to create these estimates in the field to. So we can go ahead and hit edit on that person. I'm just going to open up their profile, and in here we can head over to the permissions section. And we notice that we've got some new permissions in the allow user to add section on the right hand side. So beforehand, this was just the customers, customer locations, and customer jobs functionality that they could add from the field. We have now added this prospect, prospect location, and prospect job options here for you as well. If you're not familiar with the term prospect, that's something that you can check out some of our webinars at smartservice.com/webinar to kind of cover how and why prospects exist. But for those of you who are already aware of this feature, you can now let the technicians either create a prospect, a location for a prospect, and or a prospect job, known to you most likely as like a quote or proposal or estimate or something like that, out in the field. So that's where the permissions are going to be. You're going to need to enable this on a per person basis. So if you want some of the technicians having it, great. You don't want other ones having it, also great. Just don't enable it for them. You get to pick and choose who has access to these new features. But once they create them, let's go ahead and talk about what happens when they come back from the field and a couple new options we got for you in our next feature. So I came back over here to the office section to talk about what happens when those quotes come back from the field, and also a couple really nice notes for people that have sales reps or office folks that do a little bit more follow-up with quotes and things like that. We've created a great new section here for you in the job preparation section called the Quote Center. Now, the Quote Center does a lot of things, and it's a lot of things that I'm happy to say can replace a lot of reports that I see a lot of customers run whenever we talk about quotes, proposals, estimates, whatever you call them. It used to be the case that you'd have to run a report to see, okay, what estimates are open, what estimates are awarded, what do I need to do on them next? Well, we fixed all that here with this brand new quote center. The other reason I'm taking you over here is when iFleet creates a quote, it's going to show up in here as do all quotes created, whether in iFleet or Smart Service. So this is a great way to manage those quotes, see what you need to do next, see who you need to follow up with. So we're going to head over there into our quote center. Now, we just saw this one in iFleet just a moment ago. This is the quote that I created out there in the field. So you see that's already back in the screen as something the office can take a look at. And I want to draw your attention to some of the filters at the top there. We got a couple cool things. So the first thing is we got a different record type we can select. And you see in here you can pick either prospect, prospect locations, or prospect jobs to display in the screen. I'm going to keep mine at all for now. We can pick the specific employee if we're looking for a particular sales rep with quotes assigned to them. This is going to be the scheduled employee here, so that's important to remember. And then we got some filter dates by options, and these are part of my favorites here. So we can filter by the date created. That is when the quote was generated initially. I can filter by the completed date of the quote, when it was finalized. If it's using iFleet, it's going to have that finalization date when it comes back. Or I can go off the scheduled date when the work order, or the quote in this case, was actually scheduled to happen. So you get 3 different date filters there. I like the date created filter. I think that's the nicest one to see what quotes are the oldest, so I make sure I follow up on those first. You got a date range, so you can pick the standard options in here or do a custom option as well, which will let you change these days here to whatever you want. I do want to point out the use of the all option in here, so if you want to see all of them, you just hit that and it generates every quote that's in your system, which is nice. Basically anything that hasn't been converted over. But we'll go ahead and set ours back to today for the moment. You got a job type filter. Maybe you're looking for quotes of a certain kind. Maybe you're just looking for installations. You can come in here and filter down by that. You have the options to include inactive records. That's going to be any inactive quotes, quotes that have already been closed out in some way. Maybe they were converted already. Maybe they were just dismissed because the customer said no outright. But we can see those inactive records. So you don't have to run a report for those anymore. And also another nice button here, include converted records, which is going to be any records that you guys have already converted over into a work order or a customer or whatever it was destined to be. But you do have the option to include those converted records in here. So like I said, this should get rid of a lot of extra reporting that you had to do and make it more interactive, as you'll see momentarily. Now, my last couple filter options are going to be over here on the right-hand side. You've got a job status. So what is the status of the quote? Quotes come back from iFleet in a couple ways here. So we can either send this quote back, and it could be an active quote. It's active. It's something that's going to go out to iFleet. It's something that's ready to go. Usually this is how the quotes go until they end up in either the not awarded, meaning the customer didn't want it, or the awarded status, meaning the customer did want it and they're ready to move forward. But you have the option to go in here and filter down the screen to whatever status you're looking for in particular. So if someone is in charge of getting the quotes converted to work orders and you're trying to get all the parts you need, you probably want to come in here, filter down to the awarded quotes, start getting them converted over, start getting those parts ordered. The next option in here is the sales rep filter. So you can come in here and you can filter down to a particular sales rep if you'd like. Maybe you're just concerned with your own quotes for now, or you want to look at everybody else's quotes, so you can do that through here as well. And then you got a general search for box. This is if you have a lot of quotes in the screen and you're looking for a particular customer and you don't want to sort through the whole list at the bottom. We just have the one shown on our screen right now, so it's pretty easy. But you do have the option to search by that. You search by whatever you want for the customer. Typically you're looking for a name or something, and then you hit the refresh button and that'll basically filter down that screen to just the stuff you're looking for. Now, taking a look at the actual quote we have on here. So I've got the quote, and I can click on the name of the quote to open it up. This would allow me to make changes to the quote, anything that was entered via iFleet, which will show up in here. And of course, if I need to check out the photos or see what's going on with it, or if maybe there's a note on here, I can of course take a look at that. But I'm going to save and close that so we can return to our screen. The other option over here, you can open up the customer by clicking on the customer's name, or if you don't think this is the right customer, you can click on the little binocular tool here. And that'll let you search for the customer and move that record over to the actual customer it should be under. So you just search for, whoever we want to look for in here. You see I have my list of people, and I can click on something else to move them over. Just got to hit that OK button. But I'll say this is the right person. Our tech got that part right. I can see their address in here. That's another thing that is searchable in the search bar. You can see the type, the scheduled date, the technician who created it, the scheduled times, If they completed it, I'll see that in here, so that'd be that completion date from iFleet. If we took a down payment or a deposit, we're going to see that in here as well. And then, of course, the amount for the quote. Now, the quote's going to live in here until you come over here and you hit this convert button. You're going to hit the convert button to mark the quote as awarded and turn it into a job. So when you're ready to move forward with something, that's what you want to do. The same button will appear for the prospects, prospect locations. Since everything can be shown in the screen, they all have this convert button that you can click on to send this stuff over. So if I go over to our example here, let's grab any quotes and any prospects and all that stuff. You see everybody in here, they all got that convert button. So I can just convert any one of these into a work order, into the customer or the location, whatever I need. But we'll go back to our one example and we'll hit convert. Now, when you convert something, and this is just a quick reminder for customers that haven't done this in a little while, it's going to ask you for a name for the job. We're just going to hit OK on that, but it's going to ask you a couple other questions as well. Primarily, do you want to make this quote inactive? Most likely you do. You want to inactivate the quote because the quote's no longer needed. We're converting the quote into a work order. It's starting a new life as a work order. The quote will still be in the system, but it doesn't need to be an active open quote anymore because they've already committed to doing the work. So we'll go ahead and hit yes on this. And then it's gone ahead and created that work order for us with all the information that we had on the quote previously. So the same notes, items, job type, all that stuff comes over here. And it's ready to go. It's ready to be a work order. All right, and then to wrap up this update here, we have a few quality of life enhancements, things that customers have asked for to make your lives a little bit easier as you work through the program. These are small things, but like I said, if it helps out, we're all for it. So a couple updates on reporting. Prospect job reports have gotten a few new fields. You have a unit cost and total cost added to prospect job reports. You also have the conversion date and time to complement the new screen added to prospect job reports. So if you want to see the date and time that the quote was converted to a work order, to see what your lead time is versus the creation date of the quote, that's a good way to do that now. You'll have that option on reports. Over here on the schedule, we've added something new to the Smart Pane and history records. I got a history record over here on the screen. If I click on it, it'll show information in the Smart Pane, and one new addition down here is going to be private notes. Those private notes that you guys take on the individual work orders, that wasn't really stored on the history record for later. It is now. It's also shown over here on the Smart Pane under the regular notes that you would see. If I double click on the history record to open it up as well, and we head over to our additional info section, we can now see that the screen has been split between job notes, the public notes that you would see on the work order and the customer would see, and the iFleet private notes down here at the bottom. So minor change to history records, but hopefully that'll help you find those private notes a little bit faster and make sure there wasn't anything you guys needed to be worried about when you visited the customer. The last feature I wanted to go ahead and run through here for this version is going to be over in the Office screen. So let's head back to Office one more time. And in the Office, for those of you who are using the My Reminders feature up here at the top, which I'll go ahead and click on, we've gone ahead and added in some date filters for you. We had some customers asking for this just because they use reminders a lot and they get a lot of them, so they want to, declutter the screen a little bit. You now have the option to go ahead and filter to a specific date range. So if you want to look at just reminders for today, or what was on there for yesterday, or what do you got coming up this week, you have the option to do that now using the My Reminders screen from the Office section. Alright everybody, so that'll take care of the features for version 1.12, which will be available to you soon. If you like this video, go ahead and check out our other videos at smartservice.com/updates. If you'd like to see content like this to talk about what's coming out in the latest and greatest versions of Smart Service, we got them all there. You can also head over to smartservice.com/webinar. We'll be having our December webinar on version 1.12 to kind of run through these features individually and take some questions and things like that. And lastly, if you want to see any of our other features, head over to smartservice.com/knowledge base, our online manual for Smart Service. Thanks for checking out these new features with us, and we'll talk to you next time.